Welcome to Human Potential at Work, the show where we explore social impact, inclusion, and empowerment of everyone, including persons with disabilities. Get ready to be inspired, hear success stories, and learn tips and principles for bringing out the best in everyone.
Hello, everyone. This is Deborah Rue, and this is Human Potential at Work. And today we have Sarah Stites joining us, and she's joining us from a long way away from Virginia. And she is with Aregak Bakery and Center, and she's going to tell us more about it. And I know, um, first of all, Sarah, tell us where you're joining us from, and and then I'm really looking forward to the conversation. I know the audience is going to be so impressed.
Thank you so much, Deborah. It's an honor to be here with you. I am joining actually from Gyumri, Armenia, and it's totally fine if you don't know where that is. I'll give you a little bit of context. So Armenia is a small country in the Caucasus region, just east of Turkey, and Gyumri is the second largest city in Armenia. You actually may have seen Armenia in the news lately because we just went through a really horrible 6-week war. We lost a lot of soldiers. It was a really horrible time. So we are kind of, recovering on two fronts right now, from the war and also from COVID-19. So
I'm so sorry.
It's been a real challenge for us. But one of the bright things in my life is Emili Aregak Center, where I work. And I think you all will be pleased to know it actually means little sun in Armenian, Aregak. For kids with disabilities, it really is a bright light for them. So Emili Aregak Center, where I work, it's a support and resource center for kids with special needs in Gyumri, and also for their families, for their parents. Kids in Armenia who have disabilities really face an extra set of challenges. The poverty rate in Armenia is quite high, but among the population of people with disabilities, it's even higher. And there's not an infrastructure that accommodates them. The streets are inaccessible, schools are inaccessible. They face a lot of challenges. And so our center is just, like this bright place in their life where they feel accepted, where they're warm in the winter. It's actually very, very warm compared to most buildings in Gyumri. They're fed there. They can receive free of charge therapies. So it's really an honor for me to work there.
Wow.
And I can tell you more about it during our conversation.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us. And I know it's late where you're joining us from. So we in cold. You and I were
Yes.
both saying we were both saying, well, I'm a little cold myself. So, but I just want to. I'm so sorry about the war, and we're dealing, of course, with COVID-19 all over the world, and it's so intense. It's just so intense, and everybody's walking it, and then you have a war on top of it.
Yeah.
People dying unnecessarily. I just and becoming disabled. It's just I'm so
exactly.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much. It has been really, really difficult. And you brought up another point, which has also been on my mind. Actually, people in Gyumri, sometimes it seems to me that Gyumri is just a ill-fated city, because in 1988, actually, Gyumri experienced a massive earthquake that decimated the population.
Wow.
And left many people with disabilities as well. So I think, something that's really challenging being in this city is that, it has had so much experience with deep difficulty and also with disability. And yet it's only starting to change right now. There's still a lot of stigma against people with disabilities in this part of the world. And frequently they are kept at home. Their parents don't want to let them out into society because it's considered shameful. And sometimes children are given up to the orphanage at birth when their parents determine that they have a disability. And so that's another reason we exist. Our center exists is to equip parents with the support that they need so that they can actually raise their kids at home and integrate them in society.
Love them. And yes, and Sarah, you I just want to explore, something that you had just said, if you
Mhm.
don't mind, because
Of course.
we try to educate people, certainly on this show, and I'm so blessed with all the people that follow it because I think the topics are so important, and so I'm just
Mhm.
so blessed by that. But when you said that it's shameful, I was wondering if you would just explore it a little bit more because, and I'll give you a little bit of help with where I'm going with it. I
Mhm.
was blessed to go and speak in Turkey and Ankara, Turkey, and I fell in love with the people I met. And they were just so amazing, and I was talking about my own experience of having a daughter with Down syndrome. She's now an adult, but you know, and my daughter's 33 years ago, but 33 years ago, we still here in the States, my doctor actually talked to my husband and I just briefly um, about institutionalizing our daughter. And it wasn't a
Mm.
real do it, but it's just some people still, but at that point, we were really moving away from that in the States. And it was going to take a lot of people to get my baby away from me too, because there was no way they were going to do it.
Right.
My perfect baby. So, when I went to Turkey, when I spoke, and once again, a beautiful experience. The people, they were just amazing. But I remember that at one point they started reading at the very end of the conference. They read back the proceedings and comments. People were able to submit comments and stuff, and they
Mhm.
read it appropriately in Turkish first, and then
Mhm.
they translated it kindly for people like me that speak English. And so at one point they said some things in Turkish, and I knew they were talking about me because the entire audience sort of looked at me, and so I knew it was something. But there were several women that made comments like, nobody ever told us that we could actually be happy with our babies, and it's okay that our babies had disabilities, and that it's not shameful to us as parents, and the things that the extra stuff that we put on people. I know that in the
Yeah.
States we used to say, they used to say when a woman had a baby with autism, it was because the woman was cold and unfeeling. And so we
Oh.
caused it. So,
Mm.
and luckily we know that is absolutely not true and ridiculous to say. But I was just wondering, just for the sake of helping people understand, tell us a little bit more about, why is it religious? Because I see this in other
Mm.
countries. And by the way, it happens here in the States too. So uh,
Of
people hide
course.
things. Yeah. So it's not just happening in Armenia, but I was just wondering if you would explore it a little bit just to
Of
help the
course.
audience understand.
Of course. No, that's a great question. And I think I'll start with an anecdote. I was reading an article about a family that had a child with cerebral palsy. There was a young woman who had a child with cerebral palsy. Her husband left her again, because of the shame of that. And I'll unpack that in a sec. But in this article, it was written that this woman's brother was going to get married, and they decided to institutionalize the child with cerebral palsy because they were afraid that the brother wouldn't be able, how to put it, that maybe the family of the young woman that this man was going to marry would think that there was something wrong with the genetics.
Okay. Wow. Wow.
So I think fundamentally, really, it kind of comes down just to a lack of information, just ignorance. Not I'm not saying that in
No, a mean way. No.
a negative way, but just generally, just lack of knowledge about the way that disability works. There's still the idea, we have a swimming pool here in Gyumri, and we would take our kids from the center to swim there, and some mothers of children without disabilities complained that their children might catch
Oh, wow.
the disability. So it's really a lack of information on the one hand. And then I will also kind of broaden this out a little bit in terms of the context. Armenia, as I've already mentioned a little bit, we had a war, we had this earthquake. The Armenian genocide happened a century ago, and um, that was actually Turkey's attempt to eradicate the Armenian race, and Turkey still denies that attempt, and it's very painful for
Right.
Armenians. And so I think there's also this piece here where Armenians want to be as healthy, and as viable of a race as possible because they feel that existential threat to their existence. So I think, it's multifaceted and complex, but I do think that education will dramatically change it.
I agree. And it's just time for us to really make these things a priority. And
Absolutely.
we talk about developed countries helping developing countries, but I just think it's so important for people to hear your story because I know so many people are going to be shocked that this is still going on, and also that I am so tired of war. I'm so tired of it.
Yeah.
I defend in the United States. I spend a lot of time defending China right now because we decide who we're going to pick, you know, dislike.
Hmm.
And I find it exhausting as a woman because I just know that there's some really major complicated problems in the world, and if we
Hmm.
come together and help each other, that the entire human race, all the other inhabitants on the world and our planet will benefit. It just seems so logical to me. And yes, am I a do-gooder or not? I am so tired of all that because this is ridiculous, people. Let's
Yeah.
get together and help. How can we sit here and let y'all walk this? We need to
Yeah.
help, which is one reason why, once again, you're on the show. But it is about, we all need to figure out, we need to be proud that we're Armenian. Be
Mhm.
proud of it. And but it often, my producer Doug, who is also a psychologist, speaks about the collective trauma that we're walking, and we're all walking
Absolutely.
collective trauma, and some are walking even more collective trauma, and I think this is a perfect example. But let's not be sad and depressed because there's a lot of beauty in what you're doing, and I really
Mhm.
want to talk about that. And I love the name of the center because we need things to be bright and hopeful. We do. And so
Absolutely.
I want to talk about more about what you're doing. I want to talk a little bit about, help me understand why you started it, why did it get started, and also how is it funded? And because what I'm hoping, quite frankly, is that people of the audience will see what you are doing and say, how can I help? Because I will say
Mhm.
to you, Sarah, how can I help? Because I know I can help by telling the story, but I want to do more than that because I can't unhear what you've told me. So
Mhm. Mhm.
I know a lot of people that listen to this program will want to do the same thing. And I know the United Nations agencies and US aid and things like that try to help, but I don't always see it getting into the hands of people like you that are helping. So
Mhm.
that's where
Yeah.
we should go.
Thank you. Thank you. I have so many thoughts, so I'm going to do my best to tell a streamlined story. Um, Actually, the center started in 2008, and there were a few therapists in Gyumri who noticed that there were a lot of children with disabilities and very few um, opportunities for them to receive support, to receive therapy. Their parents were isolated, did not have the resources, weren't even aware of certain governmental support that was, available to them, but they had no one to really direct them to that. And, there were kids who, from a young age, if they had been able to work with a speech therapist or a physiotherapist, might have been able to walk or to speak, and so they noticed this, and they worked with an NGO, a Catholic NGO called Armenian Caritas, and they bought an old house in Gyumri and they created a daycare center for kids with disabilities. And it grew and grew, and this place wasn't accessible. It was filled with love, but it had stairs, it had narrow doors. It really wasn't conducive to um, to the needs of children with disabilities. And people caught the vision. There were several Austrian organizations that really caught the vision of this place and donated money to create a state-of-the-art center, which opened in 2015. We just celebrated our 5-year anniversary at that center. And really, I mean, you come to the end of the street in the district where our center is located, and there are a lot of Soviet apartment buildings, really drab, ugly. You turn the corner, And there's this beautiful building with big windows made from alpine wood. All of the materials for this building were brought from Austria.
Wow.
Yes, yes. The Austrian supporters were instrumental in creating this building.
They're doing so many wonderful things. So many wonderful things. I know the
Absolutely.
Zero Project that they do. They're amazing.
They
Brilliant
really
people.
are. They really are. And they've been such an ally to Armenia in so many ways during the earthquake and in the recent years. So we are so thankful to them. If any of you are listening, shout out to you. Um, but yeah, so we are really the only fully accessible building in Gyumri. We have wide halls, bathrooms specifically designed to accommodate wheelchairs. We have amazing equipment, and again, this is all through the support of donors. Only this year did we receive some governmental support for a specific project for children with autism. But yeah, donors, mostly institutional donors, have funded us through the years. So we are able to provide ergotherapy, speech therapy, music and art therapy, physiotherapy, and psychological therapy to kids, all free of charge. And support groups for parents, meals for kids, transport also. So it's really, it's just a very, very unique place in Gyumri, and it's really an honor for me to be there. I'm American. I've only been with the center for 2 years. I started as a volunteer and really fell in love and decided to stay on as a full-time employee.
And how did you get from America to Armenia?
My grandfather was Armenian, and sadly, I never met him. He passed away when my mother was 16 years old. And Armenia has a really unique program because of the genocide, because Armenia has a large diaspora similar to Israel. There's a program specifically for youth of Armenian descent to spend up to a year volunteering in Armenia and living there. And so I spent a year, and I was placed at Aregak and helped with communications and marketing and fundraising, and loved it and stayed on.
That's so cool. What a beautiful story.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so tell us more about where is it going to go from here?
Yeah. Great question.
What do you hope for the future?
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, a good segue. When I came on actually as a volunteer, it was perfect timing because they were embarking on kind of a shift. They had been working only with kids up to the age of 18, but the kids were getting older, and they realized, what are we going to do when the kids reach, university level age or working age? What are we going to do? Because the economy is really bad in Gyumri. There aren't a lot of jobs, and really inclusive education is only kind of just now really rolling,
Right.
Starting. So they implemented a project called 9 Steps to the Labor Market. And it was a professional preparation course for specifically tailored to young adults with disabilities, helping them understand things like, how to write a resume, how to interview, how to assess their own skills. Really important, right? Really, really important. You can't just throw someone into the labor market without prepping them in that way. So I really admired that. That was just kind of starting when I came on. And then the big project that was underway, that was going to open just shortly after I arrived, was Aregak Bakery. And this was going to be Armenia's first inclusive cafe, the first cafe to intentionally employ young adults with special needs and also moms of kids with special needs.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And so tell us more about the bakery. I was going to ask you about that next. So,
Yeah. So this has just been a really thrilling project since I have been here, from the beginning basically until, now I got to see the whole process. Um, I can tell you, based off of what I've told you already, we knew there's stigma against people with special needs in Gyumri. And so there was concern. We thought, how will this place be received by the
right.
community?
Well,
Right?
right.
Yeah. And, of course, the first goal was to provide employment opportunities for
Right.
this population. But the second goal, and just as important, was to change perceptions around the employability of people with special needs, right? So we thought people need to come, people need to be there to see them in action. They need to be able to show their abilities. People need to be there to have their minds changed. So that was a concern at the beginning, but I can tell you, Deborah, that really it has been so amazing. Our bakery is very popular, and not just in Gyumri. In the capital, in Yerevan, people know about it. They come specifically to Gyumri to get our pastries. Um, and one thing I want to make sure to mention is that something that's always been in my mind since I'm in communications and marketing is, we're a social enterprise. We have a very distinct social mission, right? But at the same time, we don't want to let our mission cloud the excellence, the superior quality of our products. We don't want to just rely on the fact that we, have a noble mission. And so from the beginning, my directors, I really credit her with this. She was very intentional about making sure that our pastries and breads were top notch, really high quality goods that you could not get anywhere else in Gyumri, so that we would attract people based off of the quality of our products, and they would stay because they loved the atmosphere and they loved our employees.
That's
Yeah,
leadership.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
And that is the only way to do it. What we have found over and over and over again, if you do not socialize the individuals into the rest of society, society can't learn. And we're
Yep.
socializing in different ways. Now, socialization is also including them in the movies and and the films and the commercials. And so there's a lot of stuff happening, which is exciting around the world, but we still see a lot of work that needs to be done and a lot of sharing that we need to do from each other to make sure that we're helping organizations like yours that really making a difference and actually changing society, which is what we need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to share a story that I think your listeners will really appreciate. So my favorite employee at our bakery, his name is Hovannes, and he has Down syndrome. He's about my age. We're the same age. And Hovannes and I, from the beginning, we just, well, really, he's just such a sweet, sociable guy. He's friends with everyone, but I like to think we have a special connection. um, um, he uh, he cried every month when he received his salary for the first 6 months of his employment.
Oh,
He would weep. And I asked him, I said, why are you crying? And he said, I can't believe that my reality is reality. This young man
oh,
he never once thought he would have a job. And he never thought he would be in an environment where people love and care for him. And really, I mean, that's another beautiful thing about our bakery is that, we have, of course, employees with disabilities and employees without, and they work together in such a beautiful way, supporting each other and learning from each other. And oh, it's beautiful, and we want to be an example, like a model for our society, that this can work, and it works for us.
yeah, that's such an amazing story. And the byproducts that you unexpectedly get is just such a
Mhm.
blessing because it's such an interesting word, diversity and inclusion, because it's such a big topic, but there's so many different diverse groups. You're talking about Armenia versus, that, and there's so many ways that we label ourselves and each other. So
Right.
putting everybody together like that, that's the way society lives and changes,
Mhm.
learns, and that's how we start really improving society. But tell us, how has COVID-19, uh,
Mhm.
changed? Is there any silver linings? I mean, there's actually silver linings associated with COVID-19. We're
Yeah.
learning. I believe we're learning to be better human beings. We're learning to value the work-life balance, because you know what, we have families outside, that we have other responsibilities, I should say, outside. We all, have somebody else. So that's some things that we've seen. But how
Yeah.
is it going with y'all with that walk?
Yeah, thank you for asking. This is a really interesting story, and I think God really blessed us through this season because it could have been very different. So, as I mentioned, the economy in Gyumri is not strong, and we really do depend on tourism as a bakery. We depend on tourism to get us through the year because, from April to October, we have tourists and they amp up our business. We make profit, and then that helps us coast through the winter months, when we really don't have so many people coming. And so, right before tourist season was when we closed, end of March. And I remember talking with my director, and we were just thinking, how are we going to pay the staff?
Right.
I mean, we opened specifically to provide employment for
Right.
this group of people. And how are we going to live if we cannot pay them? That was just going to be such a heartbreaking thing. And so we were closed for a week, and I was on Facebook, and I'm a part of a Facebook group for Armenian repats, people who've come back from other countries to live in Armenia. And I saw that someone had started a chat about how we could simultaneously support local business and also vulnerable community members, like people who had lost their jobs or people who were already in a difficult state. And I thought, that's it. That's what we're going to do. So we started a campaign, which we called Our Daily Bread, from the Lord's Prayer, give us this day our daily bread.
Very
And
good.
what we did was we reached out to our supporters, and we brought in a lot of new supporters, and we said, look, you can basically buy bread from wherever you are in the world, send us a donation, and we will bake the bread. Our staff will bake the bread, and we will deliver it to identified families who are struggling during this time.
Oh, wow, what a beautiful idea.
It was, I mean, from the beginning, I didn't know, is it, just like what I told you with when the bakery started, we thought, is this going to fly? How is it going to be? And Deborah, it was beyond successful. And we've distributed thousands of loaves of bread. Everyone kept their job, and the project is still running.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think people want to help. Sometimes we
Yeah.
have to tell people how to help. We have to
Exactly.
we have to help them understand what they need to do to help, because
Mhm.
people want to help, but it's overwhelming. There's so much that needs to be done. So that's really beautiful. Is the program still going on? The Daily Bread? Can people still do that and donate?
Yes,
And
yes, yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, and we're continuing that, and we're also going to be starting. I haven't announced this yet, so this is the first the first place I'm announcing it. We are also starting a campaign. Um, we're probably going to call it Sweets for Soldiers, and we are going to be delivering our pastries to the soldiers who are recovering in the hospital after the war.
oh
So
that's a really good idea.
yeah, for us, it's just super important because, again, as I said earlier, we're a business, but we also have a social mission, and we want to show the abilities of our staff, right? Um, and their dedication, and meet a need, and also stay in business. And we feel like this is achieving all of those purposes.
I agree. And they're so lucky to have your brilliance too. So they are. All right. Well, I know I've kept you longer than I said I was going to, but I love, love, love what you're doing. So, but Sarah, will you tell the audience how they can find out, what the website is? And, I
Mhm.
know you're all over social media because you're very clever about that. And we'll make sure that we include all this. But it's funny, you have to tell people how to find you. You have to be on
Yeah.
social media. Social media can be a dark, scary, fearful place, but it can also be a place of great hope and great light. So, and you
Yes.
prove that. I mean, that's how we met. So
Yes.
it's about socializing. Yeah, it's about socializing.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'm so glad you mentioned that that's how we met. I had forgotten that. And that is something I've discovered in my role, is that there are so many people on social media in these kind of niche spheres. And,
Right.
if you're clever, you can find them and they can become your biggest supporters, your greatest allies. For example, little tangent, and then I promise I'll come back. I've discovered a small subculture of families across the world who have adopted Armenian children with special needs.
Oh, wow. How
Yes.
cool.
Yeah. And so they are some of the biggest supporters of our center because they fundamentally understand the problems that led to these children being given up for adoption. And so they are just allies and advocates for us. And of course, I love to follow their stories too and see these beautiful children blossoming in other parts of the world. But of course, my heart hurts a bit that they're not here in Armenia, you know?
Right.
So,
Right. I know. It's bittersweet.
yeah, yeah,
But
exactly.
that's a wonderful story. And I have people they'll come to me and say, how do I get my story out? Well, you're a perfect example of how you do it. And I love
Yeah,
that everything you're doing is allowing other people to help other people so that we can all do better
yes,
in these tough times.
absolutely.
Everybody in the world is struggling. I mean, all over the world, the collective consciousness is struggling. So, but some countries already had it worse. And then, like you said, and then you had 6 weeks of war, which you didn't need during COVID-19. And yeah,
Absolutely not. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um,
But
yeah,
we have to have light. We have to have a hope that
absolutely.
there's a way forward. And those of us, I really believe the spiritual saying that if you want something, give it away. If you
Mhm.
want to be more loved, then go love other people. You want more peace, give people peace, help people. You want something, do it. So you want the world to be a better place, then contribute to programs like yours.
Couldn't
You
agree
want it,
with you
you
more.
really want to make a difference. Yes, socialize what you're doing. Donate, but then brag about donating what you're doing and
Yes,
how good you feel about it. Because that's spreading the light. That's spreading light and love. And we must do that now. We must do that. And I believe
absolutely.
we are. But we got a lot of work to do too. But all right,
Absolutely.
so let me turn
Well,
it back to you,
thank
sir.
you.
Tell everybody how to find you.
Thank you for being a conduit. I really think of you that way. You're just enabling people to spread their stories and spread light. So thank you.
Yeah, we all have to help each other. We all
Absolutely.
no we are not enemies with each other. We're not enemies with Turkey or Russia or China or it's ridiculous. We're part of the human race. Part of the human race. Oh,
How
that's
much more could we accomplish if we all just united and went forward?
could you imagine?
Oh,
Could you imagine?
yeah.
We really, yeah, have to put women in charge of everything. I mean, so many amazing men that are our allies and our accomplices, like the Doug Forestas of the world, and so many. But if we stopped fighting and we helped, it just wow, wow, what could we do? And you're a
The world.
perfect example. Yes.
Well,
So
thank you.
so tell us about the website and social
Yes.
media handles.
Yes. So it's probably just easiest to, well, okay, I'll give you both. You can find our websites on our social media pages, but I acknowledge there are many people who are not on social media. So I'll start with the websites. So our center's website is en.emiliaregak.am. And then our bakery's website is Aregak Bakery and Cafe.weebly.com. And then you can find us on social media if you just search Emili Aregak and then Aregak Bakery and Cafe. We have Instagram and Facebook, and that's where we're active.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're usually posting pretty regularly. During the war, of course, we pulled back a bit because
Yeah.
it's just tricky during those times. But we try to be
To say the least.
yes. We try to be a place of light, to spread hope and joy and promote the idea of possibility and capability through our social media pages and our website. So
I agree. I agree. And we will definitely make sure that on all of our posts and on our website, we're going to make sure this is, so if you didn't, write it down, we'll make sure that you have this information. And I will also say to you, Sarah, um, anything that you're doing, any fundraising, anything, you come to send me an email so I can socialize it. Our entire
perfect.
team will get behind you and socialize it.
Thank
Tell
you.
us what hashtags you're using, and we just all have to help each other. We have to.
Amen.
This is the way forward. This is the way forward. And someday I want to come to Armenia and eat at the bakery.
You are
I
very
want to do
welcome.
someday we all get to have vaccines and we get to travel again. Yeah. So, but let me know how I can help. And I really, really, really love the story. So thank you for being on and for joining so late too. We really appreciate
Oh,
it.
it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Really, truly.
And send us pictures and stuff, and we'll also include those too. So
I would
um,
love to. I have many questions.
okay, well, thank you so very much, Sarah. And we look forward to having you come back on and tell us how fabulous you're doing. So thank you for your work. We really do appreciate you. So
My
I'll say
pleasure.
bye to the audience, and
Bye.
we will